Welcome back to another exciting episode of Math with Jarmick and Intermediate Algebra. Here's your second lesson for the week. It is 8.3, Solving Proportions. So, the concepts that we're going to be going over here right now are not that different than what we did in 8.2, but we're going to be learning a new strategy. So it's exciting, something that'll be a little quicker for you. And again, let's talk about the title of today's lesson. It's called Solving Proportions. Now, maybe you remember from our 8.2 lesson, which was called Equivalent Ratios, that equivalent ratios are basically just any number of fractions that are the same. So for example, we could say this is 2/4 and 6/12. Those are the same fractions, so we call them equivalent ratios. And they're also proportions. So proportions are two ratios that are set equal to each other. And sometimes when we're trying to find how things are proportional or the value of something after we double a recipe, like in the last lesson, we might have a variable that we need to solve for. And in our last lesson, we used something called the common sense method. So that's what these first few examples are all about. They are all about just using common sense to try to solve for the missing number. Now, we need to look at, since they're equivalent fractions, what number could we multiply by to get to the equivalent fraction? So for example, I know that if I had a recipe that was 3 cups for 5 cookies, seems like a lot, and then we actually needed 30 cookies, I need to figure out how many times larger do I need to make this recipe. So I would think to myself, okay, 5 times what is 30? How do I get there? Well, it'd be times 6. Now, if your multiplication tables are not so great, the opposite of multiplication is division. So if we wanted to use 30 divided by 5 in your calculator, you would get 6. So if you got multiplication tables down, you could just figure it out on your own. If not, use division to figure it out. All right, so here I know that if I use the same number to multiply the top and the bottom of the fraction, I get an equivalent ratio, or I can solve my proportion is another way to say that. So 3 times 6 is 18, so our x value is 18. If you wanted to check your answer, you could do, okay, 3 divided by 5, what's that? 0.6. All right, and then I got 18 as my answer, so 18 divided by 30, also 0.6, so good, I'm good to go. I know my answer is correct. All right, let's keep going. Let's do some more examples. Some of these maybe not as easy as others. Hopefully this one's not too bad. So I can see the two things that I can see that are next to each other are 10 and 40. Well, that's fairly clear that if I had $10, if I multiplied by 4, right, if I had 4 $10 bills, it would be $40. So maybe this is a little bit more difficult, but you need to say to yourself, okay, what number multiplied by 4 is equal to 36? What number, if I multiplied it by 4, I quadrupled it, would I get 36? Maybe, again, you're not so good with your multiplication tables. That's all right. On your calculator, you would do 36 divided by 4, get the opposite operation. We learned about that last unit, and you'd get 9. So our answer would be x equals 9. All right, let's check our answer. Again, 9 divided by 10, I get 0.9. Hopefully I get the same thing. 36 divided by 40, 0.9. I'm good to go. I have equivalent fractions. So therefore, I have equivalent ratios, or I have a correct proportion. All right, this one looks scary because it has a decimal in it. Don't be fooled. The most important thing that you want to look for is the top level, because we have two things that we know there. And you can go the opposite way if you would like. You can say 6 times 10 is equal to 60. And then we would do 2.5 times 10 there to get our x value. So 2.5 times 10 is equal to 25. So x is equal to 25. There's lots of ways to do these problems, so don't feel like you have to do it the same way I'm doing it. There's lots of ways to get the answer right. Go ahead and pause your video and try the next 3 examples, solving the proportion using common sense. Oh, are we back on? Oh, I'm sorry, put that away. Okay, so don't forget you need to write down your answers to those, enter them into the Schoology assignment. It looks like a little puzzle piece, 8.3 puzzle piece, and then it'll give you the right answer even if you get them wrong, and then you can use that to help you get to the right answer. You get to enter as many times as you want to get all the points you possibly can. All right, now let's learn a quick method that will work even if it's not really obvious what you should multiply by to solve these. So if your common sense is running out, that's okay. We're gonna use a different method. So this method is called cross multiplying. You can only do this when you have an equal sign in the middle. So first thing you wanna do, highlight that equal sign in the middle just to convince yourself that, yep, I can use cross multiplying. Then what you're gonna do is you're gonna multiply the cross item. So that's why it's called cross multiply. So I'm going to rewrite this, 10 times 24. It really does not matter what order you do the multiplication in, as long as you have the ones that are diagonal to each other on the same side of the equal sign. So I could have put the 10 times the 24 on the right. Now remember, whenever you multiply an x times a number, you just get that number in front of the x. Now we're going to do 10 times 24, I get 240. So I'm going to rewrite this. 240 equals 16x. And then it's just like my song from last time. Last divide by the number that's in front of the x. So we're going to divide by 16, divide by 16. Show that that is how we know what each x is worth. So 240 divided by 16, we get 15. So x is equal to 15. All right, hopefully this is a review, but if not, we'll go through a few more examples together and we'll get this strategy down. All right, so again, I'm gonna, first step, make sure it's a proportion. This only works if you have an equal signs in the middle. Sometimes you're gonna see a multiply sign in the middle. Do not do this. You're gonna see a division sign in the middle. Do not do this. This only works if you have an equal sign in the middle, and it only helps you to solve proportions. All right, so again, I'm gonna do the multiplication. It really does not matter which part you do first, as long as they are separated by an equal sign. Again, remember, whenever we multiply a number by an x, it's just that number in front of the x. Okay, so now we need to do 30 times 39, and that is, don't worry if you get big numbers, it's totally fine, because we are going to divide by the number that's in front of the x. All right, so we're going to divide by the 18. That tells us how much each x is worth. We don't care how many 18 x's is worth. We want to know how much one x is worth. So we're going to divide by 18. And we're going to get x is equal to 65. All right, I'm going to show you something. If you want to keep going with this way is working for you, that's great. If you want a little bit of even more of a trick, right, something that goes even a little bit more faster, all you have to do is you multiply the two numbers that are diagonal, and then you divide by the one that is left over. So if you wanted to save some time, doesn't matter how you put them in, 35 times 15, or you could do 15 times 35. Both are correct, but make sure you do divide by 25 at the end, and we get x equals 18. So you multiply the ones that are across and divide by the one that is left out. All right, you're gonna pause the video and then try 4, 5, and 6 on your own. Tea, 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 I love tea. Yum, yum, yum. Welcome back. We will start by doing some examples a little bit more difficult. Really, nothing you can't handle. You got this. Now, notice, again, the first thing you do, highlight the equal sign. Make sure there's an equal sign there before you use the strategy. It only works when there's an equal sign between two fractions and you're trying to solve for x. The same strategy applies, but things are a little different because we don't just have an x hanging out there. We have 4 x's now. So there's kind of an extra step, but you guys got this. All right, so what we want to do, again, it does not matter what order you do the multiplication in as long as they are separated by an equal sign. And then we do 6 times 24, so 6 times 24. So you can't just put like the 9 in front of the x if there was no 4 with the x. You actually have to multiply the 4 times the 9. So 4 times 9 is 36. So we'd get 36x. And then 6 times 24 is equal to 144. So the takeaway here is that when you have a number in front of the x, you multiply the number that's diagonal to it times that number and then keep the next x next to it. All right, then divide by 36, just like we've been doing. So 144 divided by 36 is equal to 4. So we have x is equal to 4. Not too bad, right? Nothing too complicated. Let's try another one. Again, make sure there's an equal sign in between the two numbers, or the two fractions, or we call them ratios. That's the same thing. 12 times 100x. Again, it does not matter what order you put them in because we're multiplying, and multiplication can be done in either order. It really does not matter. All right, so now we're going to multiply the 12 times 100, which we get 1,200. Another way to say that is 1,200. So if you ever hear me say 1,200, I mean 1,200. It's kind of an old-fashioned way to explain things that are thousands, in the thousands. All right, so even though the number that's in front of the x is bigger than the number on the other side of the equal sign, we're still going to divide by the bigger number. No matter what, you divide by the number that's in front of the x as your last step. And then in this class, we do not use decimals when we put our answers into Schoology. We use reduced fractions. So make sure you put the reduced fractions. All right, you guys, go ahead and press pause and try those next 2 questions. I see you. All right, sorry, trying to make this a little fun. So these next ones are a little bit of a challenge, but you guys got this. Everything we learned last unit is going to come into play here a little bit. So something that mathematicians are really good at is keeping secrets. Something that you might not know is that actually on the top, on the bottom of every fraction are secret parentheses. So if we were asked to solve this equation, we actually could use that multiplication method that we were using, where we're going to cross multiply, but it's 5 times, and then we have parentheses around that. Another way to say that is that we need to multiply by everything that's on top of the fraction, everything that's diagonal. So that means we need to multiply by both parts, meaning distribute. You thought you were done with distributing. Well, you're not. 5 times x is 5x. 5 times 3 is 15. And then 2 times 8 is 16. Now it's just a 2-step equation. So minus 15 from both sides, we get 5x is equal to 1. Remember, you're always adding top to bottom. Divide by the number that's in front of the x, even if it's bigger, and we get x equals 1/5. Last example, it's going to be another one like this. All right, again, remember, whenever you see a fraction, there are actually secret parentheses. So we need 4, and then it's times both parts of what's in the parentheses. And same thing for the other side. We got to multiply by both parts. So 10, 2x minus 3. And then I'm going to pause here for a second and skip a couple steps, and then you check in with me and make sure you did it the same way. Did you get it? Did you get the same answer? Okay, it's a review from our last unit. First you cancel the x's on the right, then you cancel the numbers on the left. All right, you guys got this. Go ahead and try the last 2 questions. A little bit of a challenge, but I know you can do it. All right, reach out if you need help.